Awesome. Thank you, Nalini. We had great conversation in our room. I can just imagine and hear how the other rooms felt and the energy that everyone was bringing to the conversation. So I'm going to start out. I will ask Dr. Clifton if he would begin our sharing this afternoon and just talk to us a little bit about what the discussion was in his breakout room.
Thank you. It was a terrific discussion, and I think it was really very much stimulated by the opening speaker. It was very inspiring, and it enabled us to think in a fundamental way. And and we took the lead of what is necessary to create value in a person and a value in their life. And then if they have the value, then they can easily get into the market or and be able to exchange themselves at value. And he went through a whole list of how systematically there was forces that prevented value from occurring, and they also um, they also enabled other people to make profit from that. So so we really, the group all got right into the point of value and how how that can come about, and then how things can spontaneously grow if a person sees themselves as valuable. Um, and so one of the gentlemen described a program he had in California where he had an organization of ex-cons who were young men who were sort of given up on, spent time in jail. But he was putting together a program of trying to placing 5,000 computers in impoverished homes or people that were abandoned. And he had these young men organize it, set it up, and present it. And he remembers deeply about seeing these ex-cons who would show up to the city council meeting in suits and ties and present an elegant report. And it was just so empowering, but the empowering was suddenly to appear that they're doing something that's of great value and that's making an impact. And then it sort of opened up a view, a door that, we can do something that's valuable and legal and grow the community, and then the community can grow. And that was like, a tremendous share and a direct evidence of how it can organically just take place. We don't need people to do it for us. We need opportunity and seeing these possibilities. Another person presented his business of opening up, opportunities for people to work in his industry, and presented an individual that he hired who was in jail for a long time, and was sort of someone that could deal with logistics in the drug world, in the world that was the only opportunity for his survival when he was growing up. But he was given through this man, Derek, the opportunity to see these valuable skills he had, but he was transformed into presenting product and moving product, legal product, manufactured product, all around the country. And, and he just blossomed into this, incredibly productive person. And, and we really talked about how these type of experiences, can have a growing effect on our communities, and how, we just need to open up more of them. And we don't need to wait for people to do it for us, but we need to, set up things that, create an experience of having yourself valuable, and that you can, create anything that your imagination can kind of produce. But, one of the, the opening speaker talked about, when people would just say, well, we don't really going to have a good life here. We just have to wait for, the return to the Father in heaven, and we'll have a good life. Well, that, you know, that's some consolation, but it doesn't bring about change in the here and now. And so we talked about that. We also talked about how I was in a seminar last night about the PPP loans, and how there's a whole segments of people that are totally deserving of it, but had no knowledge of it. And that we sort of created this program that we had people from the small business, you know, set up a program where people could go for counseling and find out that they were deserving of these loans and were getting them. And so they're starting to, and these were people that were never exposed to even to the idea of it. They couldn't even believe that it was a possibility. And I was thinking of that, we really mentioned, but like in the GI Bill, where there was probably a 0.5% of the people that got hundreds of thousands of mortgages from the GI Bill, where maybe 0.5% were Black. They were just totally uninformed, uneducated of what their possibility, but they put their life on there. They totally were entitled to this, you know? So I think it's a combination of, you know, we agreed on educating people, exploring it, but then doing all we can to create opportunity where people can grow in their sense of value, and then the nature kind of takes over. And so it was like, you know, very moving, and it was a great experience. So I think that's, we all profited, and I certainly did. And thank everyone for participating in my group.
Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Clifton. Mrs. Faley. You're mute.
There we go.
There we go.
Yes, that's really good. The first person said she was thinking about from a perspective of being British, and what is America? And I thought, well, what a great question. And then why do people come to America? And they come to America because they don't have opportunities in another country. And they come with certain values, especially the early settlers. But the slave component is coming to America without an opportunity. And so just that in itself creates a difficulty, you know, creates a system where you don't think that you have any opportunity. You're not given any opportunity, and you have to work very hard to get to that point. But everybody should realize that that's the situation. The next thing that was mentioned was the jail system, which is a very lucrative component, and that continues to devalue the people who are not valued. And I loved hearing what Dr. Clifton was saying with, you know, taking people who are doing illegal things, looking at their skill set and directing them into doing, you know, like, you have a skill set, so let's do it in a legal way, and re-educating. And then another person was talking about having a very deep conversation with many Blacks who are trying to get, like last week, they have a product, they've created a product, and they want to get it funded and get to the market. And they can't open the door, they can't get the door open, they can't get to the right places. And so she would say, well, why not? Why not? What's the story? What's the problem? And they didn't get to the root of the problem, but many of them said, I'm just exhausted from the conversation. And my conclusion there is that we do get exhausted from the conversation and the action, but at some point, you know, something is going to turn, something is going to happen if we know that we can continue in a positive way. Another person mentioned the networking and different levels of networking, especially networking with people who have a lot of money. And most people in that level of networking have MBAs, and that many Blacks do not have MBAs. And so that puts them at a disadvantage because they haven't either taken the opportunity, found the opportunity, and maybe it's just what Dr. Clifton was meant. It's a matter of getting the information out. And honestly, I think that that's people. You know, you can do all this printed material, but it's the personal contact to say, like you were saying, there's a community meeting to explain that the money is available for you. And maybe personally taking a group of people to that to open up that opportunity. And the last that was mentioned, and of course this is what we've all said and agreed on, is the importance of education. And that in many cases, children and middle school begin to, that's where the dream is lost. Like you can have young children and the dream is created, but middle school is so difficult for everybody. But then it's more difficult for those who don't think that they have an opportunity. My comment is that that's up to guidance counselors to get good training, to present all kinds of resources to all kinds of children, and to not look at certain children with certain grade point averages and therefore not giving them the opportunity to move forward, to be better in what they do. And then lastly, was mentioned, one person came on and said that when a group of investors came together to give others opportunities, he did not see a lot of discrimination, like there was equal opportunity, like changes are being made. And the last thing that we ended with was the importance of early childhood education and how the young child, it's a point between ages 4 and 10 when they get the idea that they can do and they find the resources and they're given the resources. I think certainly during the pandemic, you know, the computers, you know, if you have no opportunity, then you're going no place. And I will end with the comment that I have made the discovery that 4th grade is the most critical grade for making major changes. That's the point where that switch can be made. So you know, a lot of important training, but it's very, oh, and then we mentioned that maybe this conversation should continue on to next week rather than having a new conversation. We come back together and move forward with it in some way. Just an idea. But it was a really dynamic group, and I appreciate what they helped me understand and learn. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the sharing. I love the themes that we've heard in our breakout room. I will share with you that we had the privilege of having our opening speaker, and I'll start with where he ended, which is what is the intentional next step? We have to make conscious decisions about the what, because we already know the why. We know what's not working. And the thread of conversation matches up with what we heard from other rooms in terms of humanity, starting with humanity. What does America really mean, and who does it mean certain things for? We did touch on education. In our room, we basically said the communities that were underserved before the pandemic are in shatters at this point in time. Children are way behind in those communities where the schools were not current, where textbooks were being recycled, where the teachers were ill-equipped but overly challenged. We have to certainly invest in education. Knowledge, we know, is power. And we talked also about the fact that with knowledge, as others have shared, when you have knowledge, you understand where to find the opportunity. So we had in our room people who had knowledge of things that they were busy working on in their space. We talked about, one contributor talked about his model, looking at entrepreneurship as a critical next step for economic and social justice, the connection between the two, The nature of work has shifted, and gone are the days where you're going to get a great job and you'll be trained and you'll be all set. The American dream is a different dream right now. And so finding ways to bring people with entrepreneurial ideas, giving everyone an equal shot at opportunity to create their own business makes sense. Instead of just looking for, as he put it, that one unicorn, that great deal, we should be allowing many horses to be roaming in the field and, drumming up the excitement and putting dollars back in the community. One of our conversations also included a contributor who is focused on a project for tech startups, but assisting them by providing the coding piece, which is a huge obstacle for some startups. And so it's called No Code and hails out of the UK, but they figured out the fact that, hey, we can help people of color, women-owned businesses, minorities with establishing tech companies, even if they don't know code, removing barriers and obstacles, right? That knowledge. Who has the knowledge? How can we help communities to overcome the obstacles and put their best and brightest foot forward to move forward? We also talked about getting involved in your community, right? We had one sharer who actually works very diligently doing reparations work, advocating for economic opportunities for people of color. And they seek out mentors and to make financial investments. They look for training opportunities. And it's great, that we are finding pockets of that, but it would be ideal if this were a national imperative and something that we were all doing in every state, in every community, especially where we had young people who were excited about doing something with their lives and moving forward. She made reference to the French Canadians and their evolution, where how they started in the beginning, they weren't allowed to speak their native tongue. They were prevented from owning businesses, and over time, coming together, creating change, that is a completely different story. It reminded me of Black Wall Street and the fact that we did have communities of color in the South who were thriving and doing well and putting their dollars back into the community, but that was destroyed. So the what is our intentional next move? One of our presenters said, we have to find a way to make economic justice more actionable. But people have a fear that they will lose something if they give something. And that's based on some of the societal norms or the things that people have grown up on. But this phrase that she used, all rising tides rises all boats, is so true and a great saying to really think upon. And so today I agree with Mrs. Faley when she says this is only the beginning of the conversation. There is so much more that we need to, as our opening speaker said, discontinue being casual observers. We need to put the car in gear and put our foot on the gas, whether it be education, entrepreneurship, creating incubators, being a coach, being a funder, bringing opportunities, breaking down the barriers and making things available. Joining organizations that are removing barriers like No Code and opening up the door for others. And I would just like to leave you with, there's so much more I could say, but I do want to leave you before we get to enjoy the musical vibes of our social justice artist. I want to leave you with some of the words from Amanda Gorman. I'll read the first stanza and her last, bookending this conversation. When day comes, we ask ourselves where we can find light in this never-ending shade. We brave the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. In norms and notions of what just is, isn't always justice. When day comes, We step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. Thank you.